Hello and welcome everyone. This is Kristen with Ingram Park. Thank you all for joining us today for the Pay It Forward Peer Marketing for Maximum Exposure. Before I hand you over to our talented co-host, I wanted to address some housekeeping items. First off, we'll be live tweeting #SparkSessions, as well as using different handles, and we would love for you to join in that conversation. You can do this by using the widget on the right side of your screen. If you have any questions at any time during the presentation, please use the widget at the bottom of the screen. We've got a bunch of team members here that are itching to help, so please take advantage of that. Any questions that you have for Robin or for Nancy, feel free to put them in there. We'll answer them at the end of the presentation. There's also a printable version available to you that would be in the left-hand bottom corner, and you can print that out if you want to take notes during the presentation on that presentation, so you have that for future reference. And then keep in mind that we do have a webinar every month, and we do present on various topics. So always be on the lookout on our social media, also in our Ingram Spark newsletter, to see what the topic will be for the following month. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Nancy Erickson. She's with BookArm, and then our own Robin Cutler. They're going to be talking to you today about peer marketing. Welcome, ladies, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much for having me.
And this is Robin Cutler. I am the senior manager at Ingram, and the Ingram Spark program kind of rolls under my purview. So I want to, today in our session, we're going to go over a little bit about what Ingram Spark is. Some of you are Ingram Spark customers, so you know full well about Ingram Spark, but some of you may be new to Ingram Spark, so we want to chat a little bit about the Ingram Spark program. And then we're going to turn it over to our talented guest, Nancy Erickson, and she's going to talk about peer marketing, and she's quite the leader a thought leader in online marketing, and is going to share with all of us, the information that she has about that. And then we're going to sort of wrap up with, general tips for all of you as independent publishers. Kristen mentioned about our ongoing webinar series. I also want to invite you as participants of this series to, let us know if there's certain topics that you would like more information about. We're happy to sort of build a webinar around, certain suggestions from our participants. And so feel free to stay in touch with us and let us know, issues in publishing that you might be a little confused about, or, things that you want to learn more about. So let's look at Ingram Spark. This is a graph that I always like to show. This kind of puts the publishing business kind of in perspective, and especially Ingram's place within sort of the publishing universe. So Ingram and Ingram Spark basically is the wholesale company that is sort of the middle person or middle company between publishers and then retailers and libraries. So publishers provide Ingram and Ingram Spark with their content, and then we make that content available to Ingram's 39,000 retail and library partners around the world. We also offer not only services on the print side of content, but also on ebooks. If you have ebook content, we also have the largest distribution network of e-retailers in the industry. So it's really important, not only as an independent publisher, but any kind of publisher. We work with publishers from the very largest down to, a publisher with just one title. and we serve that center role in the publishing sort of universe. So Ingram is very important to you and really interested in working with you, and no matter how large or how small you are. So without further ado, you see a picture here of our beautiful co-host, Nancy Erickson. She is the CEO of her company called BookArm, and she's going to tell us more about that. So, Nancy, do you want to take it away from here?
Yes, and I want to say something because many people think that that's a typo that says COE, and it's actually the same thing that your authors are. I'm the chief of everything with BookArm. And so I put that on there, not so much as a joke, because independent authors are the chief of everything. They're the chief of, ushering their book through this whole process and of getting it out and making all these decisions. So I think that title might resonate with them as well. But I'm also known as the book professor because I am a nonfiction book coach, and what I do is I help everyday people have the courage to tell their truth and give them the tools that they need to write a high-impact nonfiction book that will either change lives, save lives, or transform society. And what I mean by that is obviously that's a slice of nonfiction, but I work with people who are really intent on, the solutions that they have and offering them to the world. So that's just a little bit about me. But I appreciate Ingram Park so much. You said that you were in the middle of, between the author and the distribution network, the retailers and libraries. But I would say something even stronger than that. Every single one of my clients are Ingram Park customers because you're not the middleman. You're the linchpin. We could do nothing without you. No, and I'm very serious about that, is that with the power of Ingram and your worldwide distribution, there's nothing like that. And if people are listening and don't think that they need you, and I'm just going to put a little plug in here, because they might have their book on Amazon, which is great. You want it on there. Do not overlook the fact that the power of Ingram to get your book out around the world, because they are the leader in this whole process worldwide. So anyway, big.
Thank you, Nancy, so much. And I just also wanted to tell people that I've been on panels with Nancy. I met Nancy, I think, first at the Frankfurt Book Fair that I'm about to leave for in a few weeks. But she is a thought leader, and I see her on a lot of conferences, speaking especially with writers, kind of teaching them about the industry. And she is just top notch in her knowledge and what she knows about how to sell your books. So let's move forward.
Yeah.
So our next slide is about your tool, Book Flow. Do you want to talk to us about what this is?
Yeah, I do. Because we're here to talk about marketing your book and peer marketing, but you can't market anything unless you have a product to begin with. So this peer marketing idea, which is, the publishing industry is huge. And of course, there's a lot of things that have changed over the last few years, particularly with the advent of self-publishing or independent publishing, as I like to call it. But just because you can publish your book yourself doesn't mean that you should do it by yourself. And so I put this little graphic together for people to understand that. And right in the middle is you, the author. And so what I call this book flow is just this flow from the beginning of your idea all the way to getting your book published and produced and distributed and out and marketed. But you have to start at the very beginning. And that starts with, you sitting at your desk, and it begins with the writing. And so the best way to market your book is to have an excellent product that you'll have to market, and that all starts with your writing. I coach people through that writing process, and a lot of times, they'll say, okay, what's the most important part of writing my book or the whole publishing process? And I said, well, the most important part is whatever you're working on right now. Because at the end of the day, I think, Robin, I mean, I've heard statistics, there's over 1 million books published per year. And if you want yours, and of course we write to be read. And if you want yours to rise to the top, you have to work with professional people to, issue a professional product. And Robin, I don't know if you can speak a little bit about, kind of the genesis or where the industry's gone in the last few years and the quality of it. I'll come back to this slide, but what are you all seeing in terms of the books that are being issued through Ingram Spark in terms of, what kind of quality?
So what has happened is, authors are evolving into, real business owners of their own content. So they are, working with, editors that are professional, that add value to their work. They're working with professional designers that, organize and present their book in a way that readers can access it in a better way. And then they're finding, distribution partners like Ingram Spark to make that content available, in the industry. And even Balfour, which is the ISBN company in the U.S. that supplies ISBNs, and we'll talk a little bit about this in a little bit. They, last year when they do their annual study about the independent publisher sort of segment of the market, has actually talked about that independent publishing, self-publishing is maturing. Like it's not just they're not just writers anymore. People are evolving, as I say, into business owners, and that's really a great thing to see.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I went back to when I said chief of everything. As a business owner for your brand, your book, your brand as an author, you are the chief of everything. And you are, and that is a good thing. That means that you are controlling the entire process and the quality. And self-published books a few years ago, they were just garbage. They were awful. But that's not the case anymore. You should be able to produce a book that stands shoulder to shoulder with anything out there on the market. And again, it starts with the writing. You cannot produce a quality book if your writing isn't good. So you must budget for and work with professionals. And so if you're writing nonfiction, I can help you with the writing part. Oh, go ahead.
So I was going to say, this writing challenge slide, do you want to walk us through what this is all about?
Yeah. Sure, absolutely. So when I work with writers who, of course, like I said, we're writing nonfiction, and it's kind of funny because none of my clients are actually writers. They are what I call livers. They are out doing things and accomplishing things, but they have this seed of something inside of them that is really valuable and can really help other people, but it's trapped inside of them. So the methodology that I developed to help them get their book written is we start with, this process, and you can see across the top, it's plan, produce, polish, publish, promote, and repurpose. That's my stab at alliteration. So anyway,
yeah, it's good.
But the planning process, you start with planning, and what I do is I take them through a series of these foundational questions, because some of them they come to me with just an idea of what they want to write about. So we go through this planning process, and so what we do is we go through some foundational questions, and at the end we crystallize their message and we boil it down into a single purpose statement that says the purpose of this book is to. And that takes some real introspection. It takes us a while to get there. And then they have a defined audience. And the audience is defined as narrowly as possible because, you know what? When the book is finished, we need to know where to find these people. So what we want to do when we jump down to the promote part, we need to know, we'll know where to find these people. And then we will actually drill that market to the nth degree. So the first phase is planning it, coming up with your purpose statement, your audience, and then we create what I call book maps. And they are visual representations of your entire book, everything that's going to be in it, from your different object lessons or stories, etc. Everything's on your book and is on this map. And the value of that is that if you only have 15 minutes, you can write something. And just to remind you, and I don't even know if I mentioned this, but most of the people that I'm working with are busy professionals. And so nobody quits their job to write a book. And so we have to work around what time is there available. And so we end up in the producing part of it, they follow their book map and they just build the book brick by brick. One thing I forgot to mention on the planning part of it is, again, this is geared for nonfiction, but we construct their book in these, what I call chapter silos. They're problem solution sets. Like, we name what a problem is that their reader might have, and then we do a very story-driven effort. We show how that author, solved that problem in their own life. So when we jump over to the end where we repurpose it, I'm going to come back to that, but these chapter silos are really important. So that's part of the planning.
That's really fantastic. And the way you boil it down, I think is really valuable for all writers, no matter where they're starting the process from. This really is so helpful. So in terms of the repurposing, the marketing, do you want to walk us through this piece?
Yeah. Are we on the same slide?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, our next slide actually kind of shows that, if we want to go to the one that says the market opportunity for nonfiction writers. And so once we get to the point where your book is finished and it's polished and published through Ingram Park and distributed, we'll talk about promotion in a minute and how Book Karma can help you. But the repurposing is really a key feature, because let's face it, you have a target audience, but everybody's not going to read a book, and we know that's true. Our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. In fact, I think I read a statistic recently that something like 45% of high school graduates never read another book, and about 30% of college graduates, it's the same thing. But that doesn't mean that we leave those people out from experiencing your material. So when your book is finished, because we've constructed these in these chapter silos or these problem solution sets, you should be able to take each chapter to repurpose it to reach your audience across multiple venues. So if you want to give keynote speeches, if you want to have workshops or seminars, if you want material for blogs, to create podcasts, to create material for your social media, to do video training or online courses, your material is already organized in a manner that you can take it and repurpose it to actually blanket all channels in order to be most effective in helping your target reader.
That's really fantastic. And it's so true, isn't it? In how, you should look beyond just the finished book itself, the pieces of the book, and the value that those pieces are to you as an author, and in terms of, cultivating your audience and your readers.
Well, I have a friend, in fact, my business mentor always says, one idea well executed can change your life. And that's true. So this is, again, this is one idea. This is your book. And well executed means slicing and dicing it to reach as many people as possible. And if you're a writer, then you probably have a blog and all sorts of things. And after a while, it becomes tedious. You're like, oh gosh, what am I going to write about now? But you can use your book as a platform for that. And with my clients, I tell them, when they're writing a book, blog about the writing process. let people in on what you know and what you're doing. So that's how you sort of start creating what I call this pull, P-U-L-L, marketing environment, so that people are, when your book is ready, they're already engaged with you and they're interested in, because they've kind of been on that journey with you all along the way. So
and
when you're thinking of your...
Do they need to worry? I mean, I know I've heard other authors sort of worry when you're giving away sort of your material online for free. Is that going to, sort of remove the audience that would be purchasing your book? What do you think about that?
Well, I can tell you how I feel about it first, and then what I know about it. How I feel about it is I hate that, I hate it. It's painful to give away your best stuff. It is painful. But think about if you give away your third-rate stuff or your second-to-best stuff. They won't know how good you are. And so this is your hook, so to speak. And if you can create an appetite for what you write and for what you're able to produce, that's the best way to do it. And that all of your premier online marketers will tell you this, but I am going to also tell you that it hurts to do that, because I know that I've given away stuff that I have built. Well, we all start with a blank page, right, or a blank screen, and when you create stuff, it's like part of your body, it's like your arm or something like that, and it hurts to give it away. But if you don't give away your best stuff, you won't get any attention, and people they won't engage with you. And so anyway, when you give away, on the flip side, when you give away your best stuff, then they realize how good you are, and it creates an appetite for what you have, and they will want more. But I always have to make myself do it. So
that's really great. That's really great advice. So let's move on to peer marketing, the next slide that we have.
Very good. So anyway, Robin, you were kind of going back to where we first met, at BA and at the Frankfurt Book Fair. In addition to, which is where I was at these fabulous book fairs showcasing this product that I developed called BookArm. So what BookArm is, I was fine. Let me just back up just for a second. So the whole backstory behind BookArm, why I even developed it, and it is an online international book marketing platform. And so I was, I guess it was a couple of years ago, my authors that I've been working with their books were coming out, and all of a sudden I had this crisis of confidence and, of my conscience, actually. I'm like, oh my gosh, we've spent all this time writing their book, and if nobody knows about it, it was a total waste of their time and money. There has to be a way to get them visibility, or in the industry we call it discoverability. So I started just doodling around with stuff, and of course we can't do anything by ourselves. And for those people who are trying to go this alone, you're going to stay alone. And we have to leverage other people's knowledge, et cetera. Just like when I was talking about the book writing process, you have got to get other professionals involved, because publishing is an industry, and I bet you don't know what the standards are, so you work with professionals who can help you navigate that. And we also need other people to market our books. And, you go so far with family and friends and with your Facebook group and your Twitter followers, but here's the true story about social media. It doesn't matter if your network is 500, 5, or 5,000 people. You are pinging the same people over and over and over again. We can grow our networks, but they don't grow fast, right? So the key is, how do you get out of your own network? And that's what BookArm allows you to do. So the way it works is, and we'll kind of follow this diagram here. Here you are over on the left, and you've got your book. So you go to the platform, and it's bookkarma.net, but notice that there's only one K there, so it's bookkarma.net. And you add your book, you use your ISBN, and we will populate your page with the information about your book. It's your cover, it's your title, and you get to write, you know, about the author kind of stuff. And once you've done that, you then write social messages that you want to go out about your book. And then at that point, your book is delivered to a book queue. And I always liken this to something like Netflix. You know how you can scroll through and you see all sorts of movies that you like. Well, this is what other authors, And so other authors are doing that, and they will see your book in their book queue. So let's give you an example. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. So pretend I'm the you person in St. Louis, and I'd added my book and written my messages, and it is delivered to the book queue. So others down here in Orange, let's say it's Sally Smith in Sydney, Australia. She's browsing the book queue, and she sees my book, and with one click, she shares my book information out to her network. And so what's happened here is I have gained exposure to readers, because who follows authors? Readers do. So I've gained access or visibility to a whole group of readers that I could never have reached on my own. And so what they will see in their Twitter feed or their Facebook feed is the cover of your book and the description. And they can click on that, and it will go to your book page on Book Karma, where there is a button that says Buy Now. Now, where does it go when they click Buy Now? Well, it goes to wherever you have linked it. If you want to sell the book through your website, you link it to your website. If you want to sell it through Amazon, you link it to Amazon or wherever. So what Book Karma allows you to do is to reach an international audience without having to cultivate that audience yourself.
That is fantastic, Nancy. I just can't, I haven't seen anything quite like this. I know there's some other tools out in the industry, but this is so simple to use and just such a great resource for all writers. So I know that you do, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and listen, there's no magic bullet. Use Book Karma and other things, but in order to reach a new audience and to gain, new followers like this international, we have, I think, authors from over 42 countries on Book Karma now, thousands. So, and it's free for now. So we would like to have
I was going to ask you about the cost. How is that possible that it's free?
Well, it's free because we want to help as many authors as possible, because there is strength in numbers. The more books that you have to choose from to share, the more you will use the platform. Oh, and I wanted to add another little factoid about Book Karma is that there's something of a gamified experience for the authors. So you might think, okay, well, why do I want to share other people's books? I want them to buy mine. And one of the mindsets that we're trying to correct, if you will, is that authors are not in competition with each other. And we have this competitive mindset and like, oh my gosh, their book's doing great and I don't want to promote that and all. But we really aren't in competition with each other. If you think about books, who's going to stop buying books? I mean, there's such a low purchase price. People are going to continue to buy books all the time. So it is the principle of karma. You give out to get back. And to give you an incentive to do that, to share other authors' books, there's something of a gamified experience. And so the way that works is that every time you share another author's book with your network, your karma score goes up. And the higher your karma score, Yeah, and the higher your karma score, the earlier and more often your book will appear in the queue. And so obviously, people tend to share the things that come up first.
So that's bookkarma.net, right? It's the way you find that.
Yeah. And I think I want to go back to the quality thing that we were talking about, Robin, because when there are some books on there that are just awful. Their covers are terrible. They haven't taken the time to get a professional designer. And how many times do you think their books get shared? Close to never. Because I don't want to push that out to my followers if it's not high quality. So we're going back to, and when they say you can't judge a book by its cover, that is so wrong. If anything is judged by its cover, it's a book.
Yeah.
and so, and when you see things that are displayed in a queue, your eye is drawn to the things. It's immediately obvious what the quality products are. So again, backing up, you can't market and sell something that doesn't meet the industry standards. So that's another reason why it is so critically important to work with professionals.
So let's talk a little bit. I think you're planning to do a training, an in-depth training on September 29th. Is that right?
Yes, that's true. I am. And this is for people who want to write nonfiction. And listen, hats off to you, people who write fiction. I don't know how you do that. And when I say Book Karma, Book Karma is not for nonfiction. It's for all genres of books. But hats off again to you folks who write fiction, because I just can't. I'm just not that creative. I just can't make stuff up like that. So, and I love fiction. I devour fiction. But for those of you who want to know more about writing nonfiction, I'm doing a free training next week on the 29th at 2 o'clock. And it's, we were just talking about giving away your best stuff. You're going to get my best stuff in this. And I'm going to show you 6 steps that you can take to write your book, how to organize it. And one of the things that can be so frustrating for people who are just starting out on this writing path is that they waste a lot of time. And so I'm going to give you some methods and some tips on how you can not only just save time, energy, money in the whole process. So I think we'll have a link somewhere that they could register for this free training. And I'd love for you to attend. I mean, obviously there's no strings attached, but like others like Ingram Park and others in the industry, we're really interested in our industry. We want good writers. We want people to maintain the quality. But it's a complicated industry. Wouldn't you say, Robin? I mean, it's been around since, who knows, I don't know when the Gutenberg press was invented, but way back when.
Yeah.
And, I always tell people, I said, I'll never start a bank. I don't know that industry, and I'll never start an insurance company because I don't know that. But the publishing industry is just like those. It's an industry that is old, but it's also new, and it's changing and it's dynamic. And we live in such a time that we are so fortunate because the traditional publishers, they used to be the gatekeepers of ideas. They decided what people could read and what would be issued. That's no longer the case. However, if you want to be influential and to have your book read and purchased, then you need to know what the standards are still there, and that's what we would like to help you learn so that you can be successful.
Yeah. So, and just to follow that, because I so agree with that. Advice that I always give to at least new writers and publishers, exactly what we've been talking about. If you want a professional book, you really have to work with professionals. I can't say enough. If you have to pick one thing to spend your money on as far as bringing your book to market, for gosh sakes, work with a professional editor. An editor in particular brings so much value, and I don't care how great a writer you are. I don't think there's ever been any writer who's been published whose work hasn't been really enhanced, through the editorial process. So I
want to just jump in on that a little bit, Robin, because every great writer has a kick-ass editor. This is just something that you cannot forego, because there are things about the English language that you don't even realize the mistakes you're making, but other people do. And it's not so much just grammar and punctuation. It's word choice. It's active versus passive language. And, people always ask me, how long should my book be? And I'm like, not one word longer than it should be. So let's get it as short as possible by using good language and good English skills. So editor, I could not agree with you more.
Yeah. And the trend is now, to sort of edit down to, because as you said, Nancy, the reading public, has less time, has less attention span. So you really don't see these big, huge books anymore. And, to edit that down, as you say, to not one word more than what you need to either tell your story or, teach what you want in your book. And so invest in editing. And, it's so hard to actually write that you need to take the next step and actually invest in your work through editing. And I also believe you should have your book professionally designed. It really helps, the reader sort of digest your material. If you have the book, so that it actually is designed in a format that makes it easier to read. And then in the marketing itself, don't invest in inventory, like especially as a new writer. Don't invest in printing, thousands of copies of books, and you don't really have any idea how many people really would pay for your book, right? So don't invest in that until you know.
And not only that, Robin, I know you're going to talk about print on demand, but it's amazing. You can proofread and pay professional proofreaders, and it is not uncommon to then get a copy of your book and you're like, oh no, I never saw that.
Yeah.
And if you have paid for a lot of inventory, it's sunk. You've already sunk it in your book. So, I know you're going to tell us more about print on demand, but that is such a wonderful tool that we have.
Well, it's a phenomenon. Not every book lends itself to print on demand, but most books do. And so what print on demand, and Ingram is a world leader, through some of the technology that Ingram has built over the last 20 years. We're a leader in print on demand technology. So use that to your advantage, right? So use print on demand to exactly what you're talking about, Nancy, to refreshen your book, to fix errors that you may see after, the fact, to add reviews and endorsements, to the cover. That's also very important to do that. And then also, more importantly than anything, is to test the demand of your book, before you really know what the audience is for your work. Use social media, as Nancy's been talking about, to build your platform and to build your readership. That's really, and the advice and information and training that she has around that. The BookArm tool is just really phenomenal. The other advice I have, and I preach this pretty religiously, is own your ISBN. An ISBN is the industry book number that's applied to book content that go out into distribution. You can purchase like blocks of ISBNs from a company called Bowker. That's WOCKER. COWKER. You can also purchase individual ISBNs at reduced pricing when you're setting up your book in Ingram Spark, but own your ISBN. There's some companies out there that offer free ISBNs. I would always caution you against getting anyone's ISBN or any company's ISBN for free. It's going to tie your content to that company, and that may be fine for a while, but at some point you're going to want to, maybe make changes with how your book's distributed. So to me, owning your ISBN is like owning your name in terms of how important that is to your book.
Yeah, can I jump in here on that discussion a little bit, Robin? Because I want to have I just want to talk about the value of an ISBN. That's the entry point. That's sort of like your low bar for joining Book Karma. You must have an ISBN. And so I want to talk about that in terms of the difference between an ISBN and what you can do when you publish your book on Amazon and Robin and I have talked about this, so this isn't like they're
Go ahead. Did we lose Nancy?
No, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now, but I think you dropped out for just a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Amazon will offer you something called an ASIN, and it's an Amazon something index number. And that is not an ISBN. An ISBN is an international number that you are cataloged by, and that it's good around the world. The Amazon number, ASIN, is just good on Amazon, and that's how they keep track of your book. And a lot of people go that route when they are churning out a bunch of, I would say like pulp fiction books, just churning and churning and churning. But that's not what we take on Book Karma. An ISBN shows that you have invested in your book and that you are ready to compete on the worldwide market with the book, and it's just a low bar for that. But many people will publish both through Amazon and this is what my clients did. They will publish through Amazon and through Ingram Spark, because through Ingram Spark they get the power of their worldwide network. And so if you're faced with, choosing an ASIN, I'm just getting back to validate your point, Robin, about not only owning your ISBN, make sure you have one.
Yeah. So, and the other thing I also recommend is, put your book in as many formats as you can afford. So you don't really know who your readers are and how they prefer to consume their book content. Some people like paperback, some people hardcover, and some people, prefer an ebook. So, and you as a writer, you can say, well, who wants a hardcover? Well, if you go to these events, if you go to book signings and you actually meet, people who have come to your event, a lot of them attach themselves to you and really prefer, a hardback as sort of a keepsake of actually, attending your event. So if you can afford, 3 different formats for your book, please, and I encourage you to do that. You also don't know how your readers prefer to purchase their book. So the great thing that you do when using Ingram Spark is you inherently get the widest distribution network. So you're kind of covered there with Ingram Spark, but make sure your books are available not only online to the Amazon type online retailers, but also to bookstores so they can purchase, so libraries can also find your content. And I say this pretty religiously as well. It's really important to form relationships and to meet your local book professionals, and those are book retailers in your town or in your area, local booksellers, and that would also include like a Barnes and Noble, as well as your local library. So indie publishers go hand in hand with indie booksellers. Don't just wait until you've published your book to be the first time you've ever gone to your local bookseller, right? You should be going to your local bookstore. You should be a customer of your local bookstore. You should have a library card. If you don't have a library card, and going to the library to form that relationship ahead of time, that's something that you should do, and I really, really strongly encourage that. So let's see, anything else we need to ask before we're getting close to the end of our session here? So here's information on Nancy, how you can find her, also known as the Book Professor. That's such a great name for you, Nancy, because just in listening to you today, I even feel like I learned something here. So please, I encourage you to follow Nancy, let her know, and then, and here's my information too. Make sure you get in touch with me. Feel free to get in touch with me, send me questions, whatever you need to do. And I am going to, I know there's some audience members that have asked some questions here, so let's make sure they have the information here about Ingram Spark and how they can create an account. But let's also bring Kristen back in so she can ask these questions that people have provided. Kristen, do you want to let us know what questions we can answer?
Sure, yeah. I'll start with the question on the topic of ISBNs. Liz had said that I saw somewhere on Ingram Spark users get a discount. I haven't actually found that discount or where it is. Does it still exist? If so, where is it? Lindsay answered her via chat, but I wanted the rest of the group to know the answer to that question. So, Robin, if you could answer that in your terms.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. So, we sort of, the power of Ingram is also that we are always looking, with anybody that we work with, that we can get our customers the best pricing. So if you go to Bowker, BOWKER, and you purchase a single ISBN, it's going to cost you $150. So in Ingram Spark, we've negotiated that price down to $85. So that's the discounted price that you would get through purchasing from Ingram Spark.
Okay, we have another for Nancy. On the methodology slide, which of the repurpose options would you put the most weight behind?
Oh, gosh, what a great question. Well, I think it, I don't know if this is going to surprise you or not, but I would put the most weight on. Okay, great. I would put the most weight on podcasts. And what I love about podcasts is that it's easily consumable in bite-sized pieces. And this is where a lot of our communication is headed. In fact, somebody recently told me that when you buy a new car, which I haven't done, by the way, in 11 years, but there on the new cars, there's an automatic link to iTunes and to get the podcast delivered to you. But that's a really burgeoning, growing area where you can disseminate information and attract a following. So that's where I would go next.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. One other one here. How many writers are using BookArm? I know you mentioned that BookArm was in 42 cities, and I was just wondering the amount of users that are sharing from BookArm.
Sure. Well, it's actually 42 countries, and we have, over 1,000. I haven't checked recently, this week on the numbers, but over 1,000 authors from 42 countries. And here's the thing about the different countries and all, so many places are English speaking, even if that's not their official language. People buy books in English, and so that gives us an advantage as people who write in English.
Great. And the
That's a
last
great point.
question is, when I share from BookArm, where does that info publish? Which social media channels are either connected, or how does that whole system work?
Yeah, that's another great question. What we're right now, it's Facebook and Twitter, and as we develop our platform out further, once we get more people subscribing, we just really want this to be the go-to place for authors, and we will expand to other networks based on what our constituency says that they would like to see.
Great. That is all the questions that we had that came in. I want to thank both you ladies for joining us today and for that wonderful wealth of information. And thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. This will be available via link probably in a week or so. We'll send out a link, and then you can also rewatch in your own time if you wanted to follow up on any of the slides, and then also you can share it with anyone that you think might want the information at a later time. So we'll buzz off now, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you so much, Nancy. You've been just a fabulous guest, and I know that our audience just learned so much from you. I know that I did.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's a lot of fun. Thanks, Robin.